This week's Waste of the Week goes to Oregon state officials after an audit on the state's education agency. CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski, joins us this morning. Happy Friday to you, Adam. Good morning.
Happy Friday, Jan.
So this audit found that Oregon's governor, lawmakers, and Board of Education ignored the state agency's hands-off approach and, quote, did little to set meaningfully high standards for schools or districts and did little to intervene when some of them vastly under-delivered for their students, particularly, and this is according to them, students of color and those living in poverty. So what are the specifics of this report and why was there no accountability from the state?
So the report concluded that the Oregon school districts are flush with cash, and yet they're at risk of wasting most of it, all this taxpayer resources. Jan, this is the fourth time since the 1990s where reform has been tried in Oregon schools. And still the graduation rates in K-12 school districts in Oregon are among the lowest in the country. There's always a tension between local control and top-down state control. In Oregon, the state has abrogated the responsibility to the local school districts. And despite the spigot of money that's flowing, they're just not getting it done from an education standpoint for their students.
And Oregon schools also received $1 billion a year from a corporate tax for education and $1.7 billion in federal pandemic funds. So how was that money spent?
So, most of the federal COVID aid hasn't even been claimed. Just a couple of months ago, the local newspapers did a study and they found that the vast majority of federal money still hasn't been claimed. But, here's what it should be spent on. It should be spent on standardized testing, which the legislature has basically punted. It should be spent on mandatory reading and math scores. And again, the legislature has punted on this. It should be spent on being able to track whether a student in the 10th grade, 11th grade, or 12th grade is on track for education, and there's no way to track it. Well, in Oregon, you can't even track students on their test scores in classes. For instance, they don't know how many students have passed Algebra 1. So maybe they should spend some money in these areas.
Right. And what needs to happen to ensure there is accountability and transparency in the future? This seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, well, I think this is a legacy of Governor Kate Brown. In Oregon, the governor on education, K-12 education, holds extraordinary power. According to the state constitution, she's actually the superintendent of education. She appoints the deputy superintendent, which manages the education agency, which is supposed to hold the schools accountable. And that education agency has not been doing that. She presents the K-12 budget to the state legislature. So this rests right at the top. The buck stops with Kate Brown. She didn't get it done.
Adam, I saw another report here. Another newspaper reported that Oregon's 2021-2022 report card was missing some valuable information. What was that information, and has that been corrected?
So, Jan, it comes down to data in terms of reform. You can't manage if you don't know the underlying data. And Oregon just isn't collecting basic stuff. For instance, gender, boys and girls. Many of it was missing. The student status, whether they're homeless, whether a migrant family, whether they're a military family, all of this is missing. And it starts to beg the question as to whether or not state officials even know if they're serving some of these underserved populations.
CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski. Always a pleasure to have you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Jan.